This is an unusual episode of the Make Movement Matter podcast. I'm going to be my own guest and go solo. I've decided to call it Wendy's Wanderings. So why go solo today? Because yesterday was my 50th birthday, and I thought I could celebrate the leap into the second half of my life by talking to you about how I see aging, what being midlife is like in my life, and why I feel movement matters so much as we age. If you enjoy this shorter episode and would like to hear more Wendy's Wanderings about other topics over the summer break, then send me a direct message on Instagram or visit my website reclaimmovement.co.uk, where you can also find out all the ways I can help you progress with movement in daily life to age well. So for this episode, for a change, it's just you and me. And I thought we could talk a bit about aging so that you can have a think about what it means to you, listening to what it means to me, and just have a really good think about the aging process. Why am I doing this episode now? Well, when this goes out, yesterday will have been my 50th birthday. And really, it's just another day. But at the same time, it's sometimes useful to pause for thought, to see where you're at in your life and what it means to you, and try not to think too deeply about it. And obviously, this conversation is all about movement and how you move and where you think you're going with that. Obviously, I am quite pro moving, as you probably know. And so I see 50 really as the halfway point. And I choose to see it that way because I really do believe in that cliched of terms, age is only a number. And when I say things like that, my kids roll their eyes because they don't know the half of it. They've got youth on their side. But I really do believe it is only a number. And some days I'm probably a bit more negative about that. And I can get anxious and so on. And I'm going to go on to talk about a time that was very difficult for me, where I really did think about moving at an age more seriously. But also on those days, I can shift the way I think. And I do see that mindset around movement and aging and age is a really important thing for us to just hone in on, to see what we're saying to ourselves. I often get quite interesting messages on Instagram about the way people move, and I find it really interesting to hear people's stories and for them to feed back to me about what they've enjoyed, about what I've put out there, but also how it works in the context of their lives. What's always really interesting is that people tend to always put their age in one of the first messages, which is interesting. It gives me context, but really, in some ways, it also doesn't, because you can see the comparisons yourself in life, the differences between a potentially incredibly agile 75-year-old who's gardening, walking, climbing mountains, potentially water skiing, doing all the things that they've wanted to keep doing and love doing. And perhaps they focus less on age. And then you can see the 50-year-old who is really struggling to move. They haven't thought about movement, and they're seeing that the 50 point, as I see it, the halfway point, is much further than the halfway point for them. And that their expectations around movement are that things should almost be slowing down. But at the same time, I can feel their fear about when things aren't working for them in the way that they need to, just for practical purposes, for daily life. And it's those people that I feel most for, because I know that actually there is the possibility to make change at any age, because I've seen it. I've seen it amongst clients, I've heard it on messages, and I see it in the people around me. So I want to make sure this is really positive. And most of the things I put out, I want to be positive because there's so much negativity out there. And I think it's really key for us to always be as positive as we can, even in the more tricky times, because that way we are moving forward, we're progressing. I think it's important to bring in at this point about my own personal experience because I've just turned 50, but at 40, so literally only 1 decade ago, out of all 5, I had an experience that really made me look inward at what I saw as age around the topic of movement. I think when you are stopped in your tracks, as I was at 40, and then things didn't shift and change, things didn't recover quickly enough for me, that's when I started to get quite scared. So to keep it really brief, I was enjoying running, loving running, addicted to running, quite frankly, and then didn't listen to the warning signs in my body that I'd had for a long time, that actually my body was not loving running. And having got to half marathon stage, doing lots of 10Ks, in fact, even as training runs, and loving them, I then went to bed one night, woke up in the night and was in huge amounts of pain and struggled to walk to the toilet and wondered what on earth had happened. I will never know exactly what happened because I didn't find out. I didn't get support through the medical world that I would have liked to have had. But the NHS is brilliant for treating incidents and for keeping us alive. But obviously things like this, there's an order in things. And I understand that when things like this happen, it's going to be harder to get that diagnosis that you want, which I eventually did, but I didn't know what had happened to me, and I expected that I had pulled something, wrenched something, ripped something, because the pain was so severe, but that it would probably recover in a few months maximum, which was annoying. That was a setback. However, for me, it went on and on and on. And even though I saw improvement gradually, it turned into a years long process. In fact, 4 years realistically from start to finish. And through those darker times, the pain was not fun at all. But the thing that was hardest was my mindset and my ability to stay positive when I really thought that that was it for me and that I was always going to be in pain, and everything I had thought would be available to me in my life and that basically I'd been taking for granted might not be there. I often say that I felt 80 when I was 40. That's not to say that 80 needs to feel like that, but I was scared that that was my 80 that had come up and rushed and hit me in the face at 40. I felt so much fear of moving, about movement, and really didn't understand what on earth was going on in my body. But this doesn't happen to everyone. I think one of the key reasons that I've gone on to preach about the benefit of daily life movement and the importance is that I see this happening to others, but more gradually. I had a sudden shunt stop that made me see ahead, that I now look back at gratefully, thinking, if I hadn't had that, I really wouldn't have made the changes I need to. So a big reason that I do what I do is to encourage people to make those small changes now so that they can build. But what is aging anyway? Aside from having something like that in your life, well, we all age at different rates. There is no set thing to happen at a set number, a chronological number, so the actual age since birth. We all have different biological ages. Our genes set us up to age at different stages. Often, if you have had someone in your family, particularly parents who've lived until a ripe old age, then it's more likely you will, according to science. Scientists have also found that lifestyle factors are can make a huge difference and reverse things that have potentially gone wrong in our past. And therefore, we have got the power, we've got the control to be able to make changes if we want to alter our course and have agency over our course in life as we age. So why do I think aging is important? Well, for all these reasons. And knowing that when you do decide to prioritize your movement, then things like the deterioration in muscle mass and bone density become little challenges that you're going to work against, and you're mindful of them. You don't worry about them. You are mindful so that you're always working in the positive sense, where you applaud yourself for the movements that you do so that you can move forward. So you've got a plan so that your plan for aging well, which may not go to plan, but at least you've got a plan, is one that you really believe in and that you feel good about yourself for having, rather than potentially feeling out of control. So I've got 5 different questions. Before I go on to those, they're sort of like a bit like self-coaching questions for you that I'm going to answer as well, to just help you think about aging, and particularly movement related aging in your life. But first of all, I want you to think about someone in your life that you look up to, who makes you inspired to want to live well and move well through life, and who even gives you confidence. I have 2 people that I think are brilliant. First of all, I have recently met online the wonderful Dr. K, whose Instagram handle is Aging Disgracefully, who I'm sure if you're an Instagram person, you will have seen, because her account is now massive for good reason, because she's trying to speak positively about the aging process and encourage everyone to keep moving on a daily basis and see that process as a really positive thing. And I love those messages, as you know, as I've just been saying. The second person who's close to my heart is my Granny Margot, so my mum's mum, who lived to be 100. Now, she was an inspiring lady. She was very bright and intelligent, and her curiosity about life and her interest in humans around her really kept her going. She was a voracious reader, but she loved gardening. She loved animals. She loved walking her dog. And those things, all that interest, that outward looking viewpoint in life, coupled with movement, kept her going until a ripe old age. Now, she had many a bump in the road, and I wouldn't say that it was until the last few decades of her life that she really lived life to the full. There are other reasons why, because life was quite a struggle for her until then. But she then made the most of it. And so my view of her was kind of 70 plus, was uphill. She loved life more and more. She loved people. She loved seeing nature and things around her. And that inspired me so much to see that all the later decades of your life can be the better decades if you want them to. Maybe find someone in your life that really inspires you and hold on to them and think, how can I mimic that in my own life? And that's not to say have negative comparison, which we're going to come on to, but instead really looking positively at that example. So the 5 questions that I'd love you to have a little think about in your own life. So starting with number 1, what is your mindset around how you expect to move at every age? Do you see that when you stop working, that things are better to slow down because you're allowed to take your foot off the gas? Or do you see that movement will keep you going, as is proven medically, will keep you healthier for the years you have in the life that you live? Have a think around how you see that with other people of your own age, but also particularly yourself. Where did you expect to be at this stage? And where do you see yourself going from now? Again, thinking all about this in as positive a way as you can. Second of all, how important do you see movement and exercise in your future? And what does movement look like for you? Because we all are absolutely different in what we like to do, the way we like to move our body. If we don't particularly like exercise, air quotes for those listening, that doesn't matter, because moving is still exercising in those health terms that we're told about. Walking is a form of exercise, but it's also just moving naturally through the world if we're lucky enough to be able to do so. And do we see that walk as an opportunity to be with a friend and get out in nature, get fresh air, and have the sun on our face? Or do we see it as something we have to do? So how are we going to frame movement in our lives? Are we going to be seeing it as something joyful, or are we going to see it as something we have to do? I think the way that we see moving in our life helps us to then feel good from that movement. We can applaud ourselves for doing the thing. Even if it's something we love, we should still be really proud of ourselves for moving in that way. But also, then we can hone down into the smaller daily life movements that I talk about a lot that can really help us as we age. Because when we make these small but significant movements in our day that help us stay mobile and strong, pushing against our body weight to get up and down off the ground being an absolutely key one, but also ensuring that we incorporate balance into our day. We getting our center of gravity low down so that we can move at a lower level. All of these smaller things, we can still be really proud every single time we do that movement, because we know it's building towards a better future. Thirdly, I'd love to ask you, and I do this myself so much and try not to, but what comparisons do you make? And I'm talking about the more negative ones here, about the movements you can make right now compared to other people, your own age, older, younger, as well as comparisons with with yourself at a younger age, and those expectations that perhaps you've set unrealistically as someone when you age. Where are you at in your head with comparison? I really think that trying to notice as soon as you make comparisons is a really beneficial thing, and to try and find that stop button, because usually when we're comparing, as it's known, air quotes again, comparison is the thief of joy, because it's rare that we compare ourselves positively. Now, if you can, and you can applaud yourself for moving forward, for making those small changes and those progressions, then brilliant. That's the kind of comparison I do want you to hold on to. But whenever it's a negative type of comparison, it's really important that you try to notice you're doing it and let go, because it doesn't serve us. Being grateful for what we have right now, applauding ourselves for what we're doing and the way that we're moving forward, will really help us to create that lovely positive feedback cycle that will keep us going into the future. Fourthly, what are the changes that you could really make right now in your daily life that may be small, and I hope they're small, because actually they're the easiest ones to implement, that could really serve you going forward into your future? It could be the most micro movement change. For example, when you go to pick stuff up off the floor, thinking, I'm not going to curve through my spine today to get this. I'm going to lower down through hinging at my hips and bending my knees, because I know I've then got to push back up. So I am strengthening my legs as I go and mobilizing my hips. That one tiny change where you've got to pick the thing up anyway, unless you're going to grasp it with something, which I urge you not to do. But picking it up that way, and then maybe doing it again the next day, because although it was challenging, made you feel good, you added in that extra bit of movement that made you feel stronger. If you do, that small change could really add up, because the stronger you become in your lower body, then you might then progress to thinking, I'm going to try a squat, a supported squat at the sink, perhaps, or using door handles, but I'm going to try. And it's this mentality, this positive mentality of small changes moving into bigger ones, that I think is the best way to move towards a more movement rich future, whether you're someone who exercises or not. Because actually, a lot of people put exercise in a specific box in their life and then don't think about the way they move the rest of the time. And that serves you just fine when you are younger. But as we age, it's really important to think about all the ways that we can move and embrace all those ways, which is why I always am talking about the fact that every movement counts. Finally, number 5, what are your life movement goals? Is it a good thing, if you're someone who likes goal setting, to choose something at any point in your future that you'd like to do that involves movement, something that you love, something that hopefully brings you joy, something that brings you fun, and even something new? Because often as we age, our confidence tends to sometimes decrease and we try less new things. And yet this is the point in life when I think it's really important to challenge ourselves to try new things. So, for example, I want to start doing some more mountain climbing. I used to do it in my 30s and before. And I haven't really. I have done it a couple of times with the kids, but not enough. And I would really love to get back to that. There's an amazing feeling of getting to the top of a mountain and really feeling that sense of achievement. And obviously, to do that, I know I need to work on my knees to make sure I can get back down the hill without pain. And I need to have the strength in my lower body to carry me and push me all the way up there. So I'm looking at my walking technique and so on, knowing the ingredients that are made up to make that movement more possible. The other things are that I still love dancing and I don't do it enough. Again, I want to feel good as I dance in whatever way. And partying into my second half of life is absolutely key for an ex-90s raver. Even if I don't get the opportunity very much, and even if the kitchen discos still really embarrass my kids. But dancing is just so great at lifting the soul, and it's a way of moving that is so freeing. So those are a couple of things that I want to do, and I want to try a couple of new things too. I've never tried aerial yoga. Now, yoga's not brilliant for my body, but I would love to give aerial yoga a try at one point in my life. And paddleboard exercising on a pool. I've seen this. It looks fun. I love paddleboarding. Why not give that a shot? So trying those new things is so invigorating. You might be a bit nervous before. You might topple off. You might not look great, but who cares? Let's not have that comparison in any way. Let's just enjoy movement fun. If you feel that these things, please don't compare to what my version of movement is. But if you feel that you need to get to that point, then I really believe you can. I really believe that it is never too late to make changes. And I help a whole variety of people at very different movement stages to really find what works for them. There are so many messages out there of do this one thing and it'll solve this thing in this particular specialized way, and it will change your life. And sometimes it will. But if we want to move well as we age, we really need to think about those practical and functional movements that are going to keep us capable of doing the things we love, the activities, the exercise, and so on, and really being able to engage with life and stay independent, as my granny Margot was able to do right up until the end. So I'll just ask you those 5 questions again, just to give you a little reminder. What is your mindset around how you expect to move at every age? And can you get rid of those preconceptions? Number 2, how do you see movement and exercise in your future? What does movement look like for you? Number 3, what are the comparisons that you're making? Especially the negative ones, can we get rid of them and change it only to be positive ones if possible? And notice when we're thinking negatively, because it doesn't serve us. Number 4, what are the changes you could make right now? The small changes, really tiny, it doesn't matter what they are, that could slowly build to become habits, and then they can be built on with more habits to the point that suddenly you're moving in a whole different way than you perhaps even imagined possible. And finally, what are those goals? What are those things you want to do in the future, but also the things you want to keep doing from your life into the future that mean it's important to prioritize your movement right now and really think about the way you move. I hope you've enjoyed this standalone episode where it's just been me and you chatting about movement. Well, without much feedback, but I hope you enjoyed it. Please do always write to me and let me know how you find the podcast. Tell me who you would like to be on the podcast, or which subjects you would like me to cover, because I want to stay curious like Granny Margot, and I am. And that's why I love podcasting, because I get to chat to such amazing and inspiring people, gathering information and listening to incredible stories. And I hope you're enjoying that too. So we're on episode 17 of the second series. So there's a few more weeks to go. We're ending on an incredible guest from this series, so please keep listening. But if you would like some shorter than this episodes through the summer, where I give you some sound bites like this about very specific topics to give you a boost and some motivation to get you out there in the summer. Well, the UK summer, I'm aware it's not the same everywhere, but over the months of July and August, if you would like that, then please do write to me or DM me on Instagram so that I know what you would like as the audience, because that's really important to me that you're enjoying it. And please, I'll say it again at the end, but please do rate and review, because that really helps me to grow the podcast and get these important messages and inspiration out to the people who need it. I hope you've enjoyed listening, and if you have, you can help by doing 3 things. First, press the follow button to tell podcast platforms you want to listen again. Second, please give the show a 5-star rating and leave a review about why you liked it. And third, I'd love you to share it with friends and family or on your socials, for which I'm truly thankful. Finally, if this podcast is making you want to start reclaiming your own movement, join me in the Reclaim Movement membership for classes, both live and by replay, and countless videos of mini movement breaks to add into your daily life, covering practical and fun, important natural movements. Visit reclaimmovement.co.uk/membership to get started with your 7-day free trial. See you for the next episode, and thank you so much for listening.